So we are back. We are finally back for season 2 of the RAG podcast with me, Jon Anderson, the founder of the Hoxo Group and the host of this podcast throughout this year. Now, it's been a great summer. Things have happened. We've been busy. I got married. All sorts has happened. But all these good things have to come to an end, and we need to get this recruitment agency owner community back together. So in season 2 of the RAG, we're going to be doing very similar to season 1, but we're going to have a little bit more flavour to it. We're going to be talking to recruitment owners about their stories of growth, but we're going to be adding in more about their personal lives, the positives, the negatives, and we're going to anchor each episode to a specific event or something that's happened that you can relate to. In the first episode of this podcast, we today interviewed Jon Coxon and Elliott. Now, you might not know those names, but you may have heard of a company called Liquid Personnel. Liquid Personnel was a 140-man, 73 million turnover business that sold after 10 years back in 2016. Alex and Jon started it from the ground up, sharing a bedroom, which they talked about. I don't know if they actually shared a bedroom, but they shared a very small space, and they shared their lives together, and they had this vision. From day one, they were going to grow and sell a recruitment company. Now, these guys, I mean, I'd never met many people that have sold a business and actually made millions, and these two can talk about it in first hand. So this episode is for anyone who's aspiring to sell, anyone that thinks, you know what would it really be like to be told you've just become a millionaire overnight? Well, these guys have done it, and they've done it with stories and humour, and they're very real, genuine lads. So I love the episode. I enjoyed recording it. I'm delighted to have these guys on episode 1 of season 2, and I'm just happy to be back. So without further ado, today I'm joined by Alex and Jon, who are two ex-recruitment owners who've, as you listen to in the intro, they've had a pretty exciting journey over the last 10 to 13 years or so. So boys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us, yeah.
How do you feel about being the first one of episode 2?
Oh, privilege, isn't it? Yeah.
Massive.
Well, you would have been on episode 1 if you'd have bothered coming back to me, Alex. You were a nightmare.
I think my wife was it actually, but
I
think that she was. She was in hospital.
I was the other side of the world. That was my excuse.
You know, so I've got a pretty good excuse.
Yeah, that was. To be fair, you were an excuse.
Don't feel bad.
No, you did leave me in the mess, and I missed an episode. I had to release something else that week.
I have to keep you on your toes, Sean. What can I say?
Someone does. Well, look, I'm so happy to have you here, and finally have you in the HQ, and as I always do, I'd love you to, I've mentioned you guys, right? But I think it'd be nice if you could each give yourselves an individual intro. We'll start with you, Jon. Let us know who you are, what you're up to.
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Coxon. I started a recruitment business with Alex 12 years ago, and we sold the business a couple of years ago. And I went travelling the world, and now we've sort of circled back, gravitated back towards working together, and we're excited about launching our new venture.
All right, we'll get on to that.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Elliott. Very similar story to Jon. So I met Jon at a previous company. We set up Liquid Personnel in 2006. Six
it was, yeah.
And sold in 2016, grew it to a pretty good size, quite exciting journey. Once I'd exited, I got married and had a baby, and that's kind of where I'm at this moment in time.
Sounds like me right now. No babies involved, but for anyone who's listening to the podcast, who listened to season 1, yes, I did get married in the break, which is why we had the big break, and I've had the honeymoon and all sorts. But you've had an extra stage than I've had recently, but I imagine that's a nice thing to do once you exit a business. Actually have time to enjoy it.
It's hard work. I'll say that.
You're telling me,
I think it's.
You had no excuses for not changing the nappies, though. That's the.
Look, the reality was, why did we not take a year off? I don't think we realised quite what was coming with regards to a newborn. You can sort of like intellectualise it. We've spoken about this, but the reality, the emotional reality of a newborn is pretty hard going. So I've got a lot of respect for anyone at this moment in time
that's doing it,
who is doing it
whilst working and what have you.
Yes, indeed.
Well, look, I want to get onto both topics of what you've been doing, but let's go back to the start, right? You talked about starting in 2006. Where did you two work together before in a previous recruitment company?
Yeah, so we both cut our teeth in the same business. It was a company in Ipswich in the east of England.
Yeah.
So it was actually not a startup. It was relatively early stage when we both joined the business, and that was actually really good grounding for us, because working in a high growth business from almost kind of inception really gave us probably a broader visibility, broader set of responsibilities than perhaps we would have had in more of a corporate. So that was really positive. That's where.
How long did you stay there together?
I think I was there for 2 or 3 years. 3 years. 3 years.
And probably a little bit longer for myself. Maybe 6 months longer. Maybe.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And what point did you realise you were gonna start? Not necessarily did start, but when did you two come together and say, yeah, let's do it?
I think it was conversations that probably started in the pub, as they tend to do after quite a few drinks. Yeah. So maybe that was the starting point, and I think it just goes from there, doesn't it? It was a great company. At the same time, we got to a point where we were probably thinking to ourselves, we'd like to do it our own way, and that's probably how a lot of businesses start.
And what did you see in each other that made it choose each other to do it together?
I think we both have a similar skill set, don't we? But with different kind of key points. So I think Alex is more focused on the kind of sales management. We were both sales managers in the business, but Alex is more focused on that. I was probably more kind of operational. So, we were a good mix, weren't we, in terms of the skills that we had. Did we know that then? That's a good question, isn't it? I think we probably did. I think it's a long time ago now. A lot of water's passed under the bridge, but I think we saw it as a good partnership. And I think you have to get on. You have to get on. You go through lots of ups and downs when you start a business. So I think we had a good relationship, a good friendship, and similar goals and aspirations as well, which is obviously really important.
That was the key, wasn't it? I think we had a very shared vision of where we wanted to take the business, and we were pretty ambitious with regards to that. So I think that fitted nicely with that complementary skill set. I think those two things are really important.
So it's a good thing to talk about, really, because obviously I'm going through that now. Me and Emma started our business together, and I actually don't think we realised how different we were till we started the business. So when you're both billing and managing like we were in the same company, and we were best mates before and outside of work, but we didn't really know, you didn't know enough about each other other than you shared the same ideas and all that. But as soon as we started, it was quite clear that like he was more like yourself. Not necessarily super like finance orientated or anything, but was definitely more comfortable talking and thinking that way. And I was definitely more about being client facing and the rest of it. And whilst we could both lean either way, it did complement quite well. But I imagine a lot of recruiters would start, 2 of them, billers, salespeople, and then get quite far down the line of both billing before they think we've got to do it differently.
It's a really interesting point.
I mean, we both did the same. We both sort of started billing. So when we set up Liquid, we both started. You do what you have to do. You bill and you get the money in. And we started the business with $3,000. Really? So we had to, we had to make money.
And it was Liquid Personnel was the name, right? So where did that come from?
We get asked that all the time, and we try to come up with a funny or a really cool answer. But in reality, it was very different to what was already out there and established. So the companies within our space had very formal sounding names, and actually the market we worked in wasn't the most formal market.
Social care.
We kind of went the opposite way, and we went for something which was very different. We did get confused a few times with a nightclub when we first started.
Liquid, that's Liquid Envy or whatever.
That used to really drive me mad. They'd be like,
nights in Liquid.
I'm calling from Liquid, and they'd say the nightclub, and I'd say, yeah, sure, why not? Is it going to get me through to that? Is it going to get me past the gatekeeper? That's fine, the nightclub, So
we're offering you free tickets for all your staff. How many have you got in the business again? And how many people are leaving and starting?
Okay. Something like that. So it was creative, wasn't it? It was. I
don't want to interrupt, but I'm going to interrupt. But I remember when I first started in Venquis in London. I won't name the guy, but he'll know if he's listening. This young, like chippy Cockney lad who was like, right, I've got to get some business. And he had this idea. He phoned an insurance company or a bank. No, it was a bank, and he said, "Look, I'm calling from downstairs, and we've got a fire alarm. We've got a fire drill in the next 2 hours. Like, we need to know how many people you've got in the business, how many of them are permanent, how many are contract." And he basically got this fucking.
That's cheeky.
He got this person to reel off. Got this person to reel off like the whole engine of this company, and he came back to his boss. Was like, "I just found all that."
The problem is now there's going to be a lot of fire testing happening.
If you hashtag fire test. On LinkedIn, based on listening to this, we know you've tried.
Please don't do that.
So Liquid was the name. You both started billing. You said before the episode, you mentioned you started it in Ipswich, right?
In Bury St Edmunds, actually, just down the road.
Yeah. What was day one like?
It's all hands to deck, isn't it? I mean, we started the business in Alex's dad's back office. We shared a table similar size to this one we're sat at now, you know, so sat opposite each other. So, you know, you've got to get on relatively well to work in that proximity with someone for that amount of time. But it was just, you know, when you start a business, you do everything, as you well know, right? You know, you're the IT guy, you're the marketing guy, you're the guy who sorts the phones, you know, you're sorting out the website. It was just really, you do what you have to do, but bottom line, how can we get some money in as quickly as possible? Because
and was it temp work, perm work? What were the
all
contracts?
All contracts. And on that point, Monday nights were my favourite because I think we started invoicing at midnight on a Monday night. That was how much we'd planned out our time.
3 in the morning finishes.
We didn't get off the phone until 8, 9 o'clock every night. So there was always an element.
Was it that kind of next day market where people would say, "I need someone"?
No, it was purely our determination to make a success of it. So look, you do, as Jon said, you do what you got to do, and part of being an exceptional recruiter is having that drive and that commitment, and you have to be prepared to make a sacrifice, right? So,
did you enjoy that time in the shed?
It was amazing, yeah.
It wasn't a shed, but you know
it
was basically a shed.
It was a heat wave that year, wasn't it? It was the summer we started, and it was a heat wave. So
2006. I was coaching soccer in America that year.
Oh, okay.
I would have been hovering around San Diego or something really cool. Well, second year uni.
We were sat in our boxers in Alex's dad's office.
Trying to sound, you know, like we were professional while sat there in our pants.
And did you guys have a plan like that even then? Did you do the whole start with the end in mind? We're going to sell a business, or did you just think, you know what, we're both going to have a crack at it?
We wanted to sell, but we didn't have a plan to get from the starting point to the end. You know, so there was that ambition.
Yeah, awesome. And the types of roles you were recruiting, were they exactly what you did for the other agency? Did you literally just lift and shift?
We did. So it was contract social workers.
Any challenge with clients and restrictive covenants and all the rest of it?
We steered clear of, you know, we were decent in terms of how we approached the market. We steered away from the clients and the candidates that we've been talking to for the required period of time. You know, it was a big enough market. You don't need the hassle really, and it's.
Was it UK wide what you recruited?
It was. Yeah. We did it all from that first year. We did it all from that office. I think I focused on who knows what areas, but we picked some areas.
South of Wales for some reason.
Some really interesting patches. Because again, we had to be. You know, it wasn't just about the legal reality of that situation. It was also about being decent to the company we'd come from. So we respected that and made sure that we weren't, you know, in the early days stepping on their toes. Obviously, that changed as time went on. And
so how did the next few, let's say the first 3 years, how did that progress?
Pretty fast. So after year one, it was just the two of us. The idea was, let's just work as hard as we can, make as many placements as we can, and get build a war chest so that we can move. So the idea was never to stay in Suffolk. Suffolk's great, but we wanted to build something big. We wanted to build a legacy business. So we kind of looked at where we were going to go, and lots of the competitors were in London, so we looked at that and said, is that the right move? We're going to be going where everyone else in this space typically is already, the bigger brands. And we thought, no, let's look elsewhere. And we looked at a few different options, didn't we? And we settled.
How would that matter though? Like, was that from a client side or from a consultant side?
London was, if you look, there's a few reasons. So if you look at the London market in that space, as it was then, it was pretty locked up with a few kind of key competitors. Yeah. Whereas if you look sort of outside of London, it was the kind of the spread was much kind of more even. So there's much more of an opportunity to become a market leader in the north of England, which is where we ended up, than there was in London. And look, we operated a one office hub, so there's a cost based thing as well, right? You know, we could set up in London and pay 25% more on our costs, but actually the value of that, it wasn't really there when there was lots of opportunity in the north as well. So Manchester was a good
we wanted a bit of moats, didn't we? You know, there's a challenge, I think, when you've got a number of the same sector recruiters in the same patch. You tend to see a lot of staff maybe moving between those organisations, etc., etc. So it gave us a way to build a business which was different to the local market space that was already there.
And how did you choose Manchester?
It was even back then, it was the recruitment capital of the north. We liked it. We liked the people. You know,
they're great, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all right. They're all right.
Do you know what? When I go back now, I notice Manchester is different. Like, obviously being a kid there, and I left when I was 18, so I don't really. I find it hard to say I'm that mank anymore, because I'm not really. I've lived away almost as long as I was there, but I go now and I notice the accent, I notice the attitude and the swag of the city that's different. Like, it's almost a bit arrogant, but I love it because it's
amazing city.
Amazing. But there is an arrogance to it. Like, my business partner laughs, like he thinks everyone acts like they think they're in the Happy Mondays or Oasis, and they do. Like, you go in and at night you'll hear like certain music on, like the Smiths will be playing, and you'll be like, it is actually like that.
Well, it's got really real character as a city, hasn't it? It really has. It's got its own identity. People are proud to be Mancunian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you went there, and what was that like? Just going to a city you didn't know, to take a business that was a year old and think, right, we're going to propel this.
I think it was just exciting.
It was great
so
fun.
We were so focused, and we knew what we wanted to do, and we knew how we were going to have to behave to do it, which is just work incredibly hard and commit ourselves to that.
Where did you live?
We lived in the Green Quarter initially.
Yeah.
We shared an apartment, didn't we? Which it was all right.
Yeah.
Behind the old MEN Arena, or whatever they call
That's
it.
the one. Yeah. So we lived around there initially. Yeah,
and together, did you live together?
We
lived together.
That's what I always wonder how that is. All day, every day.
Well, we lived together for the first year when we were in Suffolk as well, and we'd finish at like whatever time it was, 10, 11, 12 later on a Monday when we were doing the invoices, and then we'd go home and play FIFA for an hour, and then we'd get in bed and just
hopefully not
rinse
separately.
Well, no.
Separately.
Are they saying that? Early on, I think we only had one bed. So John woke up one night to find me cuddled up next to him. I think that was a bit of a surprise, but I didn't want to sleep on the floor, so I didn't want to wake him up. I thought I was being nice, but I think that scared him.
Yeah,
more
the cuddling woke me up.
It was the spooning, which I probably went a bit far with the spooning, but apart from that, it was so we had a good working relationship.
You lived together, you worked together. So did you not ever think about like killing each other at that point?
I think you have to have a really good relationship, as I said earlier. It's really important, isn't it? And
sure.
and there's stress and there's pressure. There's amazing highs, but also lots of challenges when you build a business, right? As you know, and so you have to have a really strong relationship. But I think we were always, we'd have our disagreements, and then we'd move on, and that's how we've always been.
We're both good at that.
I think there's that obviously the mutual respect is there, and we've got those shared values and shared kind of goals, both with Liquid and with what we're doing now. So if those things are in place, and you can manage and you see, I think we see the value in the relationship as well, right? There's that value in a strong partnership. So yeah. And
you build a bond, don't you? When you go through that process of doing something which actually is really, really tough.
And you left all your families behind, basically, didn't you?
Yeah, we just moved. And
did you meet many people?
Not really.
I'm thinking, like, if there's 2 years from home, like same area, you go to a new city, you then work together, live together. Unless you hire people or go networking, who are you going to meet? People in your building?
It's a fair question, and I didn't. I don't know about you, but
a few, but not. I mean, when you're building a business and you're that focused on it, you're sort of, you're not. We weren't going out. We didn't have a crazy lifestyle, did we? We were working sort of all the hours that God sends, particularly in the early years. So yeah, it was. There's that sacrifice there. When you want to go big.
And I think that that's a good lesson for anyone who's looking to start up on their own. It's kind of taking it back to when you do your first year or two in recruitment, and the key thing is sacrifice. It's you have to make a success of this, and the way that you're going to do it is by understanding there are things you will have to sacrifice in your first year or two to get that network built. And it's the same thing when you actually then start the business for yourself, isn't it? It's doing what you got to do.
I always find I personally had like a bit of a novelty period where you're like, I'm not doing my old job. I mean, is this really work? Like, kind of thing. Like, and then it just hits you after like 3-4 months. And you're like, fuck, I'm in it now. And then you have the ups and the downs early. I mean, you still have them now. I still have them now anyway. But that first year is just, you can't even really describe it. And it can be related to first year in recruitment, but the stakes are so much higher.
Sure.
So how did the next couple of years go in Manchester? What was the plans like, and why did it evolve?
Yeah, so it took us a year of just billing together to build up the money to make that move, but to also invest properly.
Did you take an office space, proper space?
We took a cheap and cheerful serviced office, in the centre of Manchester. So, it's always a battle recruiting, right? Recruiting high quality salespeople, training recruitment consultants, but back then particularly it was a challenge. So the vision that we had for the business was important in terms of attracting people. But I think the first couple of years, it's a bit of a blur for me. How many people did we take on? We took on 3 or 4 people a year for the first couple of years, probably on sales, and then it just really sort of exploded. maybe a bit more than that in the
first
third
year we were in Manchester, we took it quite slowly because we were still, the reality was we were still both billing. And I think the real turning point was probably 2 years in, 1 year once we'd been in Manchester, where we took the decision that effectively you'd come off the phones.
Yeah.
And I would stay on the phones, but not as much. So again, it was about how we're going to focus on the day-to-day, but also how we're going to start building the foundations of growth. So at that point, we probably started to really ramp it up from an internal recruitment perspective.
Do you think that's where the founders go wrong? They stay too connected to the sales forever?
I think
there
it's
has to be
certainly
a point, doesn't there?
I
it's
think
a balance.
You have to reach a point where if you want to grow the business, you have to grow the business. And the business shouldn't be you, and it shouldn't be your sales. It should be coming from a number of different sources.
Yeah, 100%. So 3 years in, a couple of years in Manchester, how many people are in the business at that point?
30. I'm going to say 30.
Really? So that 2 years you went from U2 to 30?
About year 3, year 4. Yeah. Do you know what? The early years, it's a little bit. It's hard to remember the actual numbers, but yeah.
I'm going to go with 30. Why not?
How did
30?
the office? Yeah, but roughly. But how did the office move? Did you outgrow it really quick and then have to?
We moved up the building.
4 different offices.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
So we just kept moving up the building into larger offices, and then we ended up in the largest one in the roof of the building, which smelt of the Greek below. Lots of Greek food wafting up every day. That was always interesting. But we grew quite fast. We got some really good people in, and they drove the business forward. That was really important.
Before we move on from that, it sounds pretty good. It all sounds great. Do you know what I mean? It sounds loads of money, hire a lot of people. What were the downsides to it? What mistakes did you make?
There wasn't loads of money. For us, we invested the money back into the business.
But still,
and I think
the business money coming in to then invest in people, get to 30 heads. There must have been so much crap that went on along that way.
I mean, there's stuff that you just don't know how to manage. Like financial management, particularly in a contract business. There's a lot of invoices going out every week, and just managing that. I mean, I think in the sort of third year, probably we almost ran out of money, and that's just naivety and.
Did you payroll everyone?
There was the mixture between POA and limited, so we payrolled some people, but predominantly it was kind of limited. It was contractors. We outsourced, didn't we? Actually, we outsourced our finance function initially to a company that I won't name, but didn't particularly deliver very well for us. We had a factoring facility which we honestly mismanaged it, didn't we? Because it's just that. So it's that tough learning curve, and I think a lot of businesses, early on, it's hard to manage that if you don't know how to do it. So
what you say? You were close to literally running out.
We were really close, yeah. And I think but you learn your lesson, And we brought in a really good financial controller pretty early, and brought everything in house. And she had the enviable task of unravelling our mess. So she hated us for the first year, and then
Was she full time or?
She was full time, yeah. But she was brilliant, and making that kind of that transformational hire, which is not cheap, but you kind of. I think we learned a lot from that actually. But she was our first kind of senior hire on the non-sales side, wasn't she?
She was.
And then so from then on, we brought in an ops manager and a marketing manager really early, and a lot earlier than other agencies probably would. So we really started then to kind of build those bases for future growth.
And those guys stayed with us until the very end.
Really?
So the FC became our FD.
Wow.
Grew the finance function from her up to, let's say, 20 people at the end. Our ops director came in as the ops manager, grew that function to, including compliance and ops,
maybe 30 people?
30, maybe slightly more. Our marketing person came in and ended up managing the entire marketing piece of the business.
Did you grow a team in that area?
Yeah, that was half a dozen maybe. So it was we did all right. And again, it goes back to that thing: what are your best decisions? It's the right people you hire. And what are the worst decisions? What are the worst things you did? It's hiring the wrong people. Transformative, I think, is a good word. Some of those hires.
So, when did you start thinking about serious growth and going wrong question. How did the business evolve, and how did you then decide on we're going to sell at this point, or we're even going to think about it? Did it start to come clear right, actually, year 10 is when we'll go? Or did
we always wanted to sell in year 10, and there's a bit of luck and some judgment with that as well.
So it's kind of clean number though, isn't it? It's like a clean number that says...
It's, and in reality, with those sort of rounded numbers, you kind of, like early days, it's probably just plucked out of nowhere in particular, but
It's also based on a number. We had a number that we wanted to achieve, and I speak to lots of people, and I kind of get them back to that why. It's that whole Simon Sinek thing, isn't it? Start with the why. And we used to talk about our why a lot back in the day, and we were financially motivated. We were also incredibly motivated by building something, and we found that so rewarding, exciting. How far can we take this? And we then applied a number to that and thought at that point it's probably a good time to think about our next move.
What year did you start to get that number?
Quite early on. The number probably got a bit bigger as time went on, I think. But we realised, like a lot of things in life, I think you realise more what you can achieve as you're taking one step. The 10th step maybe does become a little bit more real.
Yeah, I mean, early on, you've got a shorter term focus. That's the reality, right? But kind of later on, it becomes more clear. A lot of most of the things in terms of positioning a business for a sale, it's best practice stuff, and it's what you would want to do normally in terms of growing a highly successful, high quality, high growth business. So, but yeah, certainly probably year 5 or 6, I think we started to be a bit more strategic in terms of, right, this is what we want to achieve. We've said where we want to achieve it. How do we get there? Yeah.
And then, did you take any advice externally to help?
Yeah, loads of advice. We met corporate finance. We met 4 or 5 different corporate finance companies who support businesses in going to market and selling.
Did they help you come up with the number and the roadmap?
I think what they helped us with was make sure that we had a good understanding of what buyers looked for. Going back to that piece about so again, it's just understanding. It's not, once you know it, it's like a lot of things, it's pretty common sense. But they probably put a number on, for instance, EBITDA and diversification of client base and all those sorts of things, which actually are pretty obvious. But for instance, the EBITDA number of, look, to get that sweet spot of interest, this is probably the range of number that you're looking for from an EBITDA perspective. So I think that probably started to really crystallise how long the journey was going to take with regards to when can we get to that point, which is going to then maximise the likelihood of finding the right buyer, because again, it wasn't just about achieving a number, it was about ensuring that legacy, our baby, was passed on to the right people or organisation that was going to look after it and continue to look after it and drive it forward.
And so tell me about the next few years. So from 30 up to, I don't know, but let's go from 30 onwards. Like, how did it grow, like a year on year, like successful linear path?
I think it was pretty much every year. I think there was one year where it didn't grow massively, but pretty much year on year it was a really
the financial crisis, the GFC. So that was an interesting year.
Were you basically recruiting for government departments?
It was predominantly social workers, and actually it was quite
protected a bit in those times.
We were, but I think there was still a lot of uncertainty, in the market, and a lot of our competitors definitely did sort of take their foot off the pedal in terms of investment, and we not all of them, but a lot of them did, and we saw that, and we just went hard, during that period we invested hard. There was a dip in the market, wasn't there?
50% jobs,
where the local authorities just like dropped off, but we kind of, we understood the underlying demand in that space, and it was a space where there was a real shortage of staff. It was a space where, you have to have those people in place. They're supporting vulnerable adults, vulnerable children. It's necessary. So there was a dip, but we believed in the market, and we believed in ourselves, and we kept investing, and it picked up, and we were positioned for growth as it did. Yeah.
How did your lives change and roles change as the business grew? Not at the end, but at the kind of 6-7 year mark. Because you were living that kind of really humble early days, like, just...
We always retain that. And again, we talk about this, and we say we're really happy that, look, we paid ourselves a decent amount of money, but even, we were never excessive with regards to what we took out of the business. We were always very, very
There were no red Ferraris.
There were no red Ferraris. No, we were keen just to keep the money in the
Yeah.
business and keep reinvesting it. And actually, when we did sell the business, you're glad you did that because you're used to living that lifestyle, and it put us in a good position then where our financial situation changed quite drastically to ensure that we weren't then going to go out and buy a red Ferrari within the first week.
Yeah.
I mean, as well with the market we were in, we were growing at such a rate that we were always borrowing money until the point that we sold the business. You know, it was always the case. And you know, when you sell a business, you have certain tax reliefs like entrepreneurs relief, which is a 10% tax on the capital gain. So it was better to leave the money in with that ambition of a sale than kind of take it out and pay
personal tax.
Exactly, yeah.
And did you ever you didn't go for any external investment other than borrowing from banks, etc.?
No. Factoring and then an ID facility. Yeah. So borrowing against our invoices, as simple as that.
So I think the major point of this episode, for me, is all about the sale, right? And that I've not met many people that have been through this, other than a few that from the podcast and the clients I've dealt with. And I think it's a really exciting and interesting topic because so many people listening, I'm sure, that whether they're businesses that are a bit bigger or startups or people that haven't even started, they're going to be thinking like there's an exit plan. A lot of people are in recruitment because they want to see a big upside at the end. So what point did you take it really super seriously and go, right, now we've got to get our ducks in a row and start to go to market? How did that whole work?
Well, as Jon said, probably from year 6 or 7 we were starting to position ourselves for that.
Was there certain things they said, right, you need to change now?
I think, do you know what? I think, as I kind of said before, it was definitely building a high quality business. It's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. You know, you don't want to have any skeletons in your closet.
Yeah.
You know, you want to manage your finance effectively. Ideally, if you want to sell for a good multiple and get some really interesting businesses involved in you want to be doing 3 million quid EBITDA. You want to have a good spread of clients in a stable market, stable margins. You want to have a really solid management team in place, so that when you leave the business, it doesn't fall on its backside, you know.
And you want to make yourself redundant as much as you can as owners.
Yeah,
that's the key,
without negatively affecting the business. Yeah. So it's all kind of the same stuff. So there was no kind of, I guess there was no line in terms of, right, now we're preparing for sale, because in reality we were preparing for the sale of that business from day one.
Yeah.
You know, from literally day one, because maintaining the brand and delivering for your clients, you know, on a very basic level. But yeah, in terms of really preparing and focusing on the sale, it was probably kind of 3 years before that.
And what were your jobs like at that point?
We were more and more redundant, weren't we?
Yeah, so we passed as much responsibility as was right to do so at the time to the leadership team. And we were good at delegating, we were good at supporting to ensure that those individuals weren't being given too much too soon. But as we could, we passed it all out and grew an exceptional leadership team who effectively towards the end ran the business. So, you know, our roles changed. But, you know, I always had that sales focus. Jon always had the other side of the business, the ops and the finance, the marketing.
Kept that line in the middle. What mistakes did you make that you can really remember up to that point? What big errors do you think if you did it now you would change?
We could have grown it faster. We could have done. If we had the knowledge and the expertise that we have now, we'd have grown that business twice as fast. And
like just investing more? Or?
Just investing more, making less mistakes. As we were talking about this earlier, actually, it's kind of like it's the aggregation of marginal gains, isn't it? So it's million little decisions that you make that, you know, if you make the majority of those, if they're right decisions, if they're the best decisions, you know.
Do you remember any one decision that you'd change? In the millions you've made, or one that stands out?
I mean, we would have. I think this is a broad point, really, but kind of focusing on, you kind of miss out on a bit of when particularly early on, it's hard to see the wood for the trees, right? And we probably didn't take enough external advice early on and focus enough on our personal development. So the point on the financial management side, right? You know, we winged it a little bit, didn't we? To be honest, if we're honest, and you know, you learn from your mistakes, but
we came close to going really wrong with that because of that, didn't we? So that was probably a big one. which fortunately we brought in someone who is exceptional, who took that on. But that could have gone wrong, could have gone really wrong.
We hired, I think, maintaining kind of a standard of hiring as well. There was a period, wasn't there, where we probably let our hiring standards drop, and that was quite early. We probably got a bit arrogant. We
wanted more numbers, and
we probably thought we can train anyone, develop anyone, and so there's lots of humbling moments when you're building a business, and that was one of them. I remember we hired 5 or 6 people in a couple of months, didn't we? And then a few months later they were all gone. It was like, right, okay, back to basics here. What are we doing wrong? So I think just maintaining standards is key, right? Because that's kind of where the culture comes from as well. So
did you open? I was going to say open eyes. That's not a word. Maybe I can start that word, but it's not. But did you make that very verbal, visual, the vision, the sale option, everything that you were going for? Did the team know what you were trying to do?
Senior management team.
Yeah, we'd get asked questions, and I think it was that case of just being diplomatic and saying, look, you never know what's going to happen. If something came along further down the line, we're not saying we wouldn't consider it. So did we say to people, we are going to sell one day? No. Did they know that if the right opportunity came along for us, that's probably going to happen? But certainly the management team all knew, and they were bought into it, and they were part of that journey, and they were incentivized as well, which was I think sensible.
What was the why then that you communicated internally?
Opportunity. I think when you're the business owners, there's a ceiling there, isn't there? So I think something that I think I'm really proud of, which I look back on and we got right, was that we brought in trainee recruitment consultants, and those guys progress through the business. Now if you look at that entire, I'll talk on the sales side, the MD, the effectively the sales directors, the associate directors, the team managers, the assistant team managers, they all started as trainee recruitment consultants. So I think we gave them the opportunity to progress, but I think also when you are the business owner, there is always a glass ceiling where someone's not actually going to become the MD if you're still around. So we let people understand that there would be a point where opportunities would open up again if we weren't in the business.
Yeah. Right. So when it got to the point of sale, how did that actually happen? Did you go a broking house, or someone was supporting you with it?
It's an interesting story, isn't it? So effectively we were building the business and preparing it for exit and taking it to market. And ideally someone comes to buy you, right? Ideally you don't go out there and sell yourself as a company. Ideally someone comes in and makes an offer. And I think we were about 2 months away from pulling the trigger on that
going to market,
on that marketing. And someone came in and made an offer, and it was actually, I'll be frank about it was actually an ex-employee who was a senior member of the team, went and worked for another company, effectively broke his confidentiality and told this company that we were looking to sell the business. Right. And then they came and approached us and ended up buying the business. So
they ended up buying it.
Oh
wow!
So it was
a good thing that
it was amazing. I need to buy that guy a pint. So
wow! If you're listening, you know who you are. Get bringing Jon up for that deal. I'd want more than a pint though.
That's true. Yeah, I should. There'll be a negotiation around that after this, I'm sure. But it was. So look, there's luck involved, right? In these things sometimes, but at the same time, you make your own luck, and you have to get yourself in a position in order to get lucky, right? So yeah.
Can you remember how that journey evolved? Was it a quick turnaround? Did it take a long time?
It was reasonably quick. Was it about 6-9 months in total?
About 6 months.
Yeah.
Could you concentrate daily on doing everything the same, or did you start to?
Well, we didn't really have to. We were pretty much removed from the business by that point. So, it was an intense process. There's a lot of money on the line. It's something that you've been working towards for 10 years. Yeah. So it's it's a little heavy, but you work through it, and we knew that we were a good business. We knew that we did things right, and we believed in it, But it's like the sort of point where you realise the dream, right? That you've been building up for so long. So it's intense and exciting and fun and nerve-wracking and all those kind of things.
What was it like the day that it went through?
I've got a photo of us actually stood
You
outside
do?
of Wetherspoons
I have that
beaming
now.
a selfie.
I have that now in my office, John. I don't
Do
know
you?
if you knew that you look down upon me from a wall every day.
Oh, look at that.
So yeah, we've shared that moment, but yeah, it's got
Yeah.
Wetherspoons in
So
the
what were you
background.
doing?
So it kind of ruins
Were
the
you
look,
in the
actually.
office? Where were you that day? In the
It was
office?
like we were on lunch.
Yeah,
and
we were on lunch and we got the message that it had closed.
Yeah, and then
It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, an amazing feeling. It was.
Was it as big a feeling as you'd hope, or was it an anticlimax? Or
I think the first. It's really funny because we've been through a very similar experience, and Alex talked earlier about how, that journey creates a bond, and there aren't many people who've been through that very similar experience. So we both very much experienced. I don't know how long it was for me, but there was a good few weeks of euphoria, right? And just just realizing that, and
because we don't have to go into numbers, but you're financially free for the rest of your life if you're not going to ruin it, right? That's the mindset of you can do whatever you want at that point. So it's like getting your head around that must be.
It's weird,
especially when you've lived quite a humble lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a strange.
What was the first thing you did apart from go to Wetherspoons, which everyone would do? Everyone would go to Wetherspoons if they saw it.
I bought a villa for my parents actually. So look, first and foremost, I wouldn't recommend you make any big purchases in the first 12 months. That's some advice we received from.
Just
because there's the tendency to go crazy, and
look,
it's very different, isn't it? But how many lottery winners are still wealthy 10 years further down the line? I think that's very different if you're a business person. But
off the topic of that, I mean, on that topic, slightly off that, I don't know what I was watching. I think it was an Instagram ad or something I was watching the other day, and it was like something stupid, like 85% of anyone who wins money that wasn't a high performing person before.
They didn't appreciate it.
They lose it, or they spend it all, and they go back, and they end up broke. Which is like, I can imagine, if you've built a business and the way you've built it as well, you've not took loads of externals and you've gone and done it humbly all the way. I can't imagine you'd just piss it away.
Well, you want to give back a little bit, don't you?
You know what it took to earn it, right? So so there is that, yeah.
But also you want to give. So for me, it was again one of my really proud moments that my parents had always wanted a villa in Spain, and I was in a position then at that point. I'd sent them off. It was a bit risky probably before the sale had gone through, but I was that confident it would because we were a great business. I sent them off to go and find a villa. So I managed to strike a deal with the person who was selling it, and pretty quickly did that. So again, it's knowing your why, isn't it, and wanting to give back once you're in a position to be able to do so.
But what about on the day though? Where did you go? What did you do?
I was knackered.
I was
went to bed.
I genuinely think
watched an episode of The Office.
I was talking because there's the relief to get it done, right? When you've been working for 6 months of the due diligence and stuff. So I don't know about you, but I was knackered and I had an early night. Yeah, that's so boring, isn't it? But that's what I did. Yeah.
I think I'd have to go for a few drinks. My wife is just she always talks about because I talk about what I'm trying to do all the time, and I've got a sale plan and all the rest of it, right? And that's why being around people like you is amazing, and actually doing what I'm doing is amazing, because actually I think more so now than when I was a recruiter, I deal with entrepreneurs all day. Whereas when I was a recruiter, I was dealing with leaders within big corporates. So I'm around people with a similar mindset, which is, for me, is great. But I pass that on to her when I'm home, and she always talks about, we'll make loads of money and we'll get a bag of cash and we'll throw it in the air. And then she's obsessed with this vision of throwing cash in the air. I'm like, there's no way I'd want to do that.
You should definitely do that.
Yeah.
So why didn't we do that?
And JJ, you would be there filming it, wouldn't you? JJ is behind the camera.
Can I be there as well, please?
You can be there. Yeah. You can be there.
Cool.
Fucking hell. Hopefully I've still got a bit of grey hair on my head by then. You never know. But so if we go, the next few weeks are a little bit euphoric. You're buying a house. What are you doing?
So we were contracted to the business, weren't we? So
part of the deal was you were locked in for a
just
bit.
Literally 3 months. So they wanted us around in case, but I think they fairly quickly worked out that they didn't really need us. So we were.
That's super clever, because the amount of people that get locked in for 3 years to hit extra targets, and is that because it's private equity investment?
It wasn't. It just wasn't really what we were looking for either, was it? We wanted a clean break, and I think we found a buyer who also wanted a clean break, which was great, but then we built that management team and that board of directors to allow us to have that clean break as well. So we were kind of hanging around a bit for a couple of months, and then, I mean, for me, I like my travelling around. I like to have. So I literally enjoyed a couple of years of freedom, and I travelled around. I drove across the US. I travelled down through Central America from Mexico to Colombia.
It's all on your own originally. You went out on your own.
On my own, yeah,
Wow.
on my own, yeah. Originally with my ex-girlfriend actually, and then on my own. So I was in the US with my ex. Yeah, and I lived in Colombia for a year before moving back to Europe. So yeah, but I was in Japan for 3 weeks. I went skiing for 3 months. So I just cut loose and just kind of.
Did you let go like health and stuff as well, and go a bit crazy and think?
No, I was really. I quite like my fitness. Yeah. So I was always doing. I mean, when I was in Central America, I was hiking up volcanoes and skiing for 3 months, as I say, in the Alps. So I kept pretty.
And were you
active.
watching this from afar?
Yeah, my wife, we had a baby, so I was living vicariously through Jon and all of the incredible pictures as I tried to stay awake during the day due to sleepless nights and
Did you literally stay at home then with the newborn?
The idea was that I would take a year off and enjoy that first year at home with the baby, which on reflection, I hope my wife isn't going to hear this, was mental. It is so demanding, so it probably wasn't the most relaxing year.
It must have been weird to go from being like the owner of a big business and corporate life and everything's like you say serious financial purchases, and then it's like you're right, and the baby chat and all the rest of it.
And look, the reality is it's probably an area where you need to think about, because again your identity effectively changes to such a degree that takes a while to get used to. And we were laughing about this, weren't we? But I went from being in a position where I was so fortunate that effectively there was this big company built around us. And although we weren't heavily involved at the end, I didn't really have to do a huge amount. So if there was a problem with my computer, the IT guy helped me. If there was something going on, someone with an ops could help me. So that was really, really nice. But at the same time, I then went from that to all of a sudden having to do everything for myself. And that was quite an experience. I mean, it toughened me up, let's put it that way. It was a good experience for me early on to have to actually do stuff for myself again.
Yeah.
It was,
Well, you look at it, don't you? You think when you're that focused on a goal, it's the end of the journey, right? If I achieve that, everything's going to... And look, incredibly grateful and obviously happy and privileged to kind of get to that point, right? And actually manage to sell that business. An amazing experience, and it's afforded us the freedom to do what we want to do now, right? So amazing, but it comes with kind of challenges as well. So I think it's important to know, if you're sort of preparing and building towards that point, that it's, as obvious as it might sound, it's not the end of the journey. After that, there is an after that. It's not, And,
it's young guy. I mean, you mid to late 30s when you do it. That's a lot earlier than most people do it.
There's got to be a mountain after the mountain. That there's some saying about.
Do you feel
that,
like it's another opportunity to go again, even bigger, or?
I think it's a different. It's not necessarily about bigger, but it's about a different why now for me, right? So, or different whys.
So that moves us on to. Well, no. First question. I've got another question on the topic of leaving and selling. What happened to the business and the people that you employed? So I imagine that must be quite a big thing. Like, you're emotionally connected to 140 staff, and especially the leadership team. Like, how did you manage and how did you deal with that?
I think for me there was this weird conflict about wanting to stay. You don't want to be the last person at the party who won't leave, right? And when you go through the process of actually passing over your baby, you have to be respectful that you're passing it over, and you don't want to be the guy that's hanging around. So I think there was a difficult transition in that first 12 months or so where I deliberately took a step back, because I didn't want to be that person saying, "Hey guys, do you remember me?" So it was difficult, wasn't it?
David Brent with his dog in the office.
There we go.
Keeps turning up.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. So it was quite hard actually, because you want to maybe contact people and say, "How are things?" But also you're very aware that that's not really appropriate anymore.
Did they all, like, did that business move offices, or is it just someone bought it and kept it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that appealed to us about the buyer is that the business kept its own identity. So they made some recent acquisitions, and the same had happened, and that reassured us about that, But yeah, it kept its own identity and
is Liquid going
and
now?
The leadership team.
Still going? Yeah. I don't know.
They're still the number one in their space, of course.
Yeah, of course.
To get that in there, well done, Liquid.
Well done. And they were started out as a nightclub in Bury St Edmunds. No, I'm joking.
Who'd have thought?
So that moves on, right, to what's the future hold. So you've finished No, you're not finished your travelling because you live in Barcelona, but...
I've had, it's sort of real life again now.
Did you get to a point where you were like, I mean, I went travel complete different. I went away with $2,000 and came back 2 years later when I was a teacher at 23, 24. But I did remember after 4 or 5 months of being in Asia and India, I got sick of sunsets. And I never realised I would. Like, I was fucking sick of the same chat, of meeting travellers and saying where you're from and the same crap.
I refused to have that conversation.
I hated it. I actually hated it. And that's why when we landed in Melbourne, we had planned originally we only went to Melbourne because it was the cheapest fucking ticket. I was like, where do we land that's cheapest? Is at Melbourne. It's like, sweet. Got there, had no idea about it really. And I was like, we're going to travel around, probably chase the sun up to the Darwin and Cairns area and all that. But because we'd got to the point where we were sick of sunsets, we used to call people, pardon my French, but travelling wankers, right? So anyone who had like dreadlocks and big harem pants on and stuff would be like, oh, there they are, another TW. And I was just sick of the chat. So when we got to Melbourne, I was like, I want to get as far away from that as possible, which is why I ended up getting a job in recruitment and trying to get a 457 visa and live like a local and not be a traveller. As much as people might not realise it, if you can have too much of a good thing, can't you, right?
100%.
So what was your experience like with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, as we both kind of circled back to the point where we wanted to make another move at a similar time, didn't we? Despite having different kind of journeys to that point. But yeah, for me, it was when I got to Colombia, which was about a year ago. And I was just tired of it. And I totally agree. There was, the first sort of year and a half to 2 years, genuinely, I thought like this, who could ever get bored of this? It's amazing, right? You're seeing all these new things and meeting all these amazing people, and that standard traveller conversation aside.
Sorry if anyone's an avid traveller, but that's a word I used to call them, travelling wankers.
Yeah, no, I know I know the type. Yeah, so no, it was. So
were you talking a lot at that point? Were you regular comms or emails or?
We've kept in touch throughout. Yeah.
So that leads me on to where we are today. So you've moved back to Europe. And now you're looking at launching something else. So tell us, Alex, what's it all about?
So we are looking to invest in exceptional people. So we're both still extremely passionate about the industry. We're very appreciative of some of the help and support we had early on with regards to how we were going to achieve what, in the end, we did achieve by building a great legacy type business. So we're both really keen now to be able to take some of that expertise and give back a little bit, but also, to be frank, live vicariously a little bit through other people in the journey they're going to take to, if that's what they want to do, achieve something like we achieved. So we are actively looking to speak to people who want to build and grow exciting legacy recruitment businesses. We can sort of support them with that journey.
John? What do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I sort of mentioned earlier about the why, right? And so we still have big ambitions, but I think we've both reached a point where it's definitely about supporting other people to achieve those kind of goals. And we want to work with exceptional people. We want to work with people who could go and set up their own business themselves and make a success of it. But with our support, it's going to be quicker, it's going to be faster. And
so basically taking all them lessons you said you'd have learned and putting them into someone else's journey now.
Well, if you can scrub out the million mistakes, and that it's that aggregation of marginal gains, you can. Do
you think there's anything that because we're in a new era, digital, social media, tech, everything's cloud-based. Is there anything that you guys... Do you think there's a danger of your experience, whilst it's not old, it's still 10 years difference from when you started? Do you think
we only exited 2 or 3 years ago.
But you weren't in the ground level at 2 or 3 years ago.
Do you know, it is a point. It is a point, and I think look, the sort of further away you get from the coalface, right, the sort of less relevant your experience, So I think we're working. So we've just made an investment which is soon to be announced, and those guys are early stage, and we're in that business and we're supporting that business really intensively. Look, it's like anything, isn't it? There's always areas that we can develop, right? No one's a finished article.
No.
But like you have to invest in your own personal development, and if there's gaps that we have, we need to keep investing that. I read a book or two a week. Alex is an avid reader, and but look, I think generally speaking, the kind of nuts and bolts of building a good recruitment business
haven't changed.
Isn't a lot different now than it was 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Yeah.
Obviously, what we're doing is we're on a mission to help businesses understand that brand and marketing in 2019 and beyond can have a huge impact. Like
Absolutely.
What we've done in 2.5 years, I don't think we could have done 10 years ago. So there's parts of the job that have changed, but the nuts and bolts of the engine of what you guys offer, I don't think have changed. And what's the ideal target client or client partner that you would look for? What type of people, if they're listening, describe who you'd be interested in engaging with?
Sure. So it's individuals who have experience in a niche market space, who have built, trained, developed and retained high performing sales teams. So again, we're really, really keen to speak to partnerships. So we know from experience the value that complementary skill set brings to the table.
So you mean 2 founders together?
That's right.
What about 3 or 4? Is that okay as well, or too many cooks?
It depends. Again, I think it's about the skill. It's not about the number of people. It's about the skills that are brought to the table. So, going back to that previous point again, just to reiterate, Jon and I had shared values and we had a shared vision, but it was our complementary skill set which I think really added that value. 1 + 1 in that situation doesn't equal 2. It's equals 5. It equals 10. So I think that's important, and we want people who, again, have demonstrable experience of building, training, developing and retaining high performance teams. These are individuals who could do it for themselves, but they see the opportunity to do it bigger, faster and with less risk, having the right advisors and business partners on board who can support them from a theory perspective, a practical perspective, and also put some serious cash in at the beginning to get that momentum going.
Do you know what? That's probably the one thing I would say I've seen in owners where they've been open about their struggles with me and they're not moving forward, and it's typically those that didn't manage before.
Sure.
So they're biller or 2 billers that thought, we'll earn more money.
Yeah.
Did do well in year 1 and then thought we'll grow a company, but didn't have the infrastructure or the experience behind them. I always say, like, when I was at my old business, I was pushed into management when I started billing such a high level, and I wasn't that excited about it, if I'm honest. But then when me and Amma sat down and was like, we're going to start this fucking company, that was my catalyst to say I've got to learn on someone else's money, and not everyone has had that thought process or even the opportunity. So would you not look at someone who hasn't managed then? Is it if they would just, could you not bring that?
I think they need to have that. I think they need to have that demonstrable management experience for this kind of role. We're going to be investing. So we're not looking to take on 5-10 businesses a year. It's about finding really interesting opportunities with people who have got their skill set to a level, and no one's a finished article, but it needs to be at a level from which we can really accelerate some rapid growth. So they really need that kind of management experience. But yeah, look, for us it's about maybe a couple of investments a year for the next kind of 4 years, and personally supporting those businesses in their growth.
Trying to get them all up to be a liquid.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have to be able to add value, and that's a time commitment. It's more than just a financial investment. It's actually being able to spend time supporting those individuals, as you say, to achieve the sort of the numbers that we're talking about in our previous business.
Because there are other organisations doing that type, they're positioning themselves in the market. And a lot of what I hear and comes across is it's about giving solutions that allow recruiters to do what they do best, and then take away the back office, the finance, the invoice, the stuff you talked about before, and allow so you can almost dot out of a recruitment agency and day one you basically do the same job, and all the rest, the brand, the website, everything's taken care of. I don't get the vibe you're offering that kind of solution. It's more. Is it fair to say you're going to put the building blocks in place so they have that themselves rather than take
that model
out?
works for some people who probably want to go out on their own and stay,
make 80% and
give away 20% of revenue. That's not really what we're looking for. We want to be able to support the right people, put in world-class infrastructure, processes, systems and standards from the very beginning of the process, because that's what's going to give them the platform for hypergrowth, right? It's very difficult to do that stuff early on, because you don't really, until you've got to a point where really you've kind of spent 10 years figuring out what that looks like, it's probably the hardest bit. The easiest bit is picking up a phone and billing in the early days. The hardest bit is knowing, well, what do I need to do to build a platform for growth? So the real value we can add is we can do that from day one, and that's how they're going to grow fast.
Exciting. And you say you've already got one on the books?
Yeah, soon to be announced. We've got our first investment, a couple of guys in Manchester in a really exciting market. We've been working with those guys for the last few weeks, and we'll be announcing that shortly. So amazing, really exciting. And I think it kind of talking about that profile that we're looking for, they're two partners, they've got those complementary skill sets. They're both experienced billing managers. They're in a really exciting market. They want to get to that global market leader position, international opportunity, high margins. So that's a really good kind of model in terms of what we're looking for. And they're guys that, look, again, together, those two guys would be successful. They do a good job, but we can help them fast track that growth, both in terms of our experience and also that extra financial boost.
So obviously, if people want to get in touch, I imagine they can message me and I can put them in touch. But LinkedIn is the best place, right? I imagine people to reach out to you. So obviously you'll be tagged in everything from that, which is good.
Yeah.
How is life outside of this all now? So I can see the vision there. You're going to spend as much time as required with the investments. But what else is going on? Because I can't imagine that is all you're going to be doing. You've got plenty of money. You've got kids and young families. What's life like as well as you move forward?
I think once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur, right? And you get that itch. So I think I'm really excited about focusing in on this now, and this is like a...
You're not going to move in together again, are you? Go back to 10 years.
Unless Jon will let me spoon him.
Was enough.
The spooning is an absolute must.
Go back to living on tins of beans and go for it from day one.
Lots of noodles.
I think it's you sort of... You change as you grow, don't you? And you get older. And obviously, Alex has got his family now, and I'm living with my girlfriend and very settled. I don't want to be working from 9 a.m. till 2 a.m. the day after, like we did when we started Liquid. But it's a bit of an addiction still, isn't it? When you have something that you're passionate about. So I think for me, I've had a couple of years where I've just roamed around. And it's very much now about focusing in again and supporting some exceptional people.
And Barcelona is where you stopped?
Barcelona at the moment, yeah. A couple of hours commute to the UK. So Alex is in Rutland, and it's about the same to any...
It does actually take me the same amount of time to get to Manchester than it does Jon in Barcelona.
No way. Where is Rutland then?
It's in between Leicestershire and Lincolnshire. So it's very, very country.
Yeah. And paint a picture of what your life's like.
I have a beautiful family, a wonderful wife and a wonderful little boy, and we live in the countryside. We've got a big gate, so that unless I want to let someone in, I don't have to, which is always
How far is
quite
the
nice.
local shop?
So we live on a 2-mile road, and there's probably, within a mile stretch, there's probably 2 other properties. So it's nice. It really is in the middle of nowhere.
What about like supermarkets and anything like
that? There's a local town which is only 10 minutes away, but we've got a couple of 4x4s because in the winter, if you didn't, you could be in trouble. So look, that was again, it's kind of, it's what I'd always wanted to do.
Yeah,
I'd always had that vision,
I wanted to. As much as I travelled a lot, your vision is more my vision. I think going out in Essex somewhere would be my vision.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to be too far from London, but I definitely like the thought of. Do you feel isolated out there? Does it get a bit boring?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Everything in life is balance, isn't it? So look, I love the city. I enjoy being in the city and around the buzz and that, but I also really, really like going home. So I think I've got a nice balance between those two things.
We're nearly done, but there's something I also want to ask, and this is aimed at you, Alex. And I've been really thinking about this recently. I obviously got married, and I've not had any kids, and I'm hoping I will. Touch whatever material this horrible table is made out of. And hopefully I'll have money, right? The plan is not just money, but I want to be successful. I want to do what you're doing and you've done. And I also think to myself, like the way I grew up in Manchester in a family where, 3 boys, my mum, stepdad came in a bit later, and we weren't poor, but we didn't have any money. And my mum was that kind of, pushed me to just get out and do what I needed to do. And then I look at other people, and I always think having money and then having children. How are you planning to? Or are you thinking about how are you going to install that work ethic and that? I guess what's the drive in someone when you could provide everything? You could give them everything. I think that has got to be one of the hardest.
I agree.
And I've not heard anyone say how they got that right, or
Well, look, I think I'm still learning, but don't spoil them for starters. I want my son to...
Is it tempting though when you can? Like, give them everything if they want it, kind of?
Yeah. And look, he's young. He's only 3 come the end of September. So, look, that's something I'm very aware of because I came from a nice situation. My parents, they certainly didn't have a lot of money, but they were comfortable enough that they could give me a nice lifestyle. So, I'm very aware of looking at how they treated me, that I've got to be very similar, and it's about instilling values. I suppose it's the same thing as a business, isn't it? You've got to think about your values as an individual and how you want those values to be reflected around you, and it's about having the opportunity to instill those values in your son and not make him a spoiled little brat, which no one wants.
It's hard. I mean, I was watching a program on, I think it was Channel 4, with Gordon Ramsay's son, and there's loads of celebrities, and then and you see their kids, and then I mean, Gordon Ramsay's background was horrendous, growing up in Glasgow,
sure.
And then his son's growing up in like Chelsea, and it's like, whilst they're very similar, they're worlds apart.
He has to work from a young age. He has to earn his own money. He has to make his own way in life. Am I going to help him out? Of course I will. And if he ever got in trouble again, I'd help him out, but I'm certainly not going to be giving him stuff for free, because I was washing dishes from, I think I had my first paper round at 11. I washed dishes from 13 to 17 every Friday and Saturday night because it was the best paying nights. So again, I look at my dad, who is incredibly hardworking, and that was someone I looked up to because of that. So again, I think you can instill a lot of values by leading from the front, and that's something I'm keen to do with Carter, my son.
I know a very entrepreneurial family, actually, 5 kids, all over the age of 16 now, but when they got to 16, the kids were all given a certain amount of money and told to go and start a business and make, not much money, but they, so I really like that. But I guess it depends on the kid, right? Maybe there's not a one-size-fits-all for it at all. But
No, but I really like that. It's something I'm already thinking about, and I'm that kind of person, right? I'm always, every part of my life, I try and, not plan it, but I try and visualise it. I think as soon as I visualise something, I feel like it's possible. That's just my mindset. So do you know what I'd love to do is get you back. Hopefully the rag will survive the test of time. We'll get you back on it in a year or two, and we'll find out how it's progressing. But guys, look, genuinely, I've loved it, and I appreciate. And I don't think an hour can do it justice. The story has got way more than we've been through. But firstly, I'd like to say well done. Like, it's amazing what you've achieved, and I honestly believe most of the listeners and people across the industry will be aspiring to do similar, so you should be proud of that. And I'm really excited to see what you guys can achieve next, and with what you've already done. Hopefully the ingredients are there. I'll make sure that obviously anyone who reaches out, please reach out directly to these guys. If you can't for whatever reason get through, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch. This season of The Rag is going to be all about the same topics as last season, but it is going to be about the life and big stories that go on from a recruitment owner, from selling to starting to having families and losing families and all sorts. Because I honestly believe that as a community of owners, we can help each other, whether we meet each other or not virtually. We can, with these stories, keep motivating each other. So what I'm looking for is obviously more people to listen. So if you guys, anyone listening who's enjoying the start of the season and the previous season, please do share your comments on LinkedIn, share the episode, let people know, tag us in it, and also give us a rating on the Apple Podcast Store. I mention it every episode because the more people that rate, and I've got some ratings now, which is great, the more Apple will push it and more people will see it. Join us again next Wednesday for another episode of the Rag Podcast Season 2.